I don't get why this side doesn't want to do anything, but I want it to. It's like kind of lopsided funny. It's doable, it's fine, it's whatever.
I'm glad she loves me the way that I am.
No. Hey guys, welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about some tips and tricks for how to get some really great engagement photos. I'm joined by my other half, Sean, today. He's going to be helping me give you guys some ideas for taking some great engagement photos.
Mostly I'm just agreeing with what she says because happy wife, happy life.
So usually once you get engaged, like the first thing that you want to do is schedule your engagement photos. It's kind of like the first step before you even get into planning the whole wedding and all that.
Once you've announced it and you've decided to start planning your wedding and you've decided to start putting things together, one of the first big tasks that you can do is choose a photographer and take some engagement photos. And these are really useful because you use them in your wedding announcement and you save the dates. You can put them up, as just pictures for people to look at during your actual wedding. So they're really, really useful photos. So you want to spend some time actually thinking about it and planning it out and getting something that's really quality that you'll really like.
That's a really good point about putting them up during our reception and stuff, because we have some really awkward selfies, but we want some nice photos of us too. So we have 4 different tips for you today, and let's get started. Number one. Number 1 is choosing your photographer. That is kind of the most important part of this whole thing, because that really dictates how your photos turn out. So the first thing I did when I started looking around at photographers for us is I looked at people's styles. That's where I really started with the whole thing. You want to find a photographer that matches the style you're looking for in your photos. So for me, I wanted something like light and airy and magical, whereas I know there's other photographers that prefer something a little bit more darker, moodier, that kind of a vibe. But for our engagement photos, I wanted something that just kind of was really magical and cute.
You can actually spend a lot of time looking on places like Google, for example, which is what 99% of us do anytime we have any question at all, is just go to Google and Google will tell you the answer. And that's a really good tool. It helps you find photographers in your area, especially if you don't know people. But also don't be afraid to ask. You'll be surprised how many of your friends have cameras and maybe dabble in photography on the side that you just don't know about. And sometimes having a friend do it, or somebody that you have a little bit more of a personal connection to, can actually be a really, really big benefit because it makes you more comfortable with the person. And if you're a lot more comfortable, the photos are going to seem more natural and they're going to flow easier than if you're with somebody that you've literally never met before and it looks like you also just met your wife-to-be, and that just makes things really awkward during the entire photo shoot.
Yeah, so we actually picked a photographer that we knew from my workplace. She does some photos for our social media every once in a while. And she was able to get us to some locations that we may have not been able to use if we didn't know her. So that's another great part about knowing your photographer, is that they may have some special ins and outs that they can share with you that you might not get with somebody else.
Number 2.
So once you've chosen your photographer, the next step is to kind of try to envision what you want for your photos to be. So for me, I made a Pinterest board for it. I made a little board for my engagement photos, and I started picking some poses that I liked, some locations that I liked, and even the style of clothing and the style of the photos. So I was looking at the light and airy photos. I was picking some that I liked the clothes on, and then I was also picking poses. That's one of the biggest parts of that, is picking your poses, because then you can send that board to your photographer so she can look at all the poses that you like and be like, okay, I will do this pose and this pose and this pose with them later.
And that's actually a really underrated step. Putting together a board of posts that you like, even if you're just scrolling through Pinterest and treating it like a swipe left, swipe right kind of thing, where you're just I like this, no, I don't like that. By the time you get done with it, what you'll be able to tell is you'll be able to go back and you'll see themes throughout this, and your photographer will be able to see that too. So when you give this to your photographer, they can spend 30 seconds looking at your board and immediately know the kind of style and everything that you're after, and it makes it so much easier rather than trying to verbally communicate what it is that you want, or going through the process and going through the photo shoot and then getting the photos and being really unhappy with it at the end. The goal here is to nail it on the head the first time.
Yeah.
And this really, really helps with that. But also, like, when you're looking at things, don't feel like you have to like a photo or you have to find everything in one photo that you're looking for. You can mix and match between things. And also, don't be afraid to take suggestions from your photographer. You may have an idea in your head about locations that you might want a photo taken, for example. But if they're a good photographer and they've been doing this for a period of time, they also know a lot of these places. So don't be afraid to say, like, hey, like, I kind of have this idea, we want to take a photo in a field because I think it'll look really cool. Do you know any fields, or do you know any farmers that will, not shoot us on site when we trespass across their field? So, don't be afraid to ask. Sometimes it's really helpful to get their opinion on things, especially once they know what it is that you're after.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what we did. I had the idea that I wanted to do something in like greenery, in a grassy area, field kind of a thing, and I just asked our photographer, I was like, I don't really know this area very well. Do you have any ideas? And she did, and it was awesome. So.
Now, this is going to be the first part in this video where I'm going to briefly address just the guys. And if you're watching this, it's probably because your better half is making you watch it, let's be honest. But if you've made it to this part in the video, I have a piece of advice for you, which is take an active role in this. You can definitely let your fiance basically pick all of the photos and the style and, the poses and the clothing that you're going to wear and all that, and design basically the entire photo shoot. But if you actually take an active role, sit down and look through Pinterest with her for 5 minutes. It doesn't take that long, but it shows that you care, and it will bring some of your input and your style into it. And even if it doesn't seem like it at the time, it's going to make it feel a whole lot more like a joint project, which is kind of the whole point of getting married. So if you have the ability to, spend some time looking through that, even if you don't have a Pinterest, just look at the photos with her. Tell her what it is you like or you don't like, poses that, you might want to see, things like that. It really adds a lot of depth to this experience, and it'll make it a whole lot more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. I actually put him on the Pinterest board too, so he got to look at all the pins too.
I may have already had a Pinterest, mostly for cooking ideas and home improvement and building things, but I was happy to add this to that list.
And if you are looking for ways to spruce up your board a little bit and make your whole engagement board look really, really nice, head over to my blog. I have a whole blog about making your Pinterest board look great and functional for wedding planning. Number 3. Alright, number 3 is planning your outfits. You want to try to complement each other when you do this and not be clashing with your colors and not also look like matching. It seems very daunting when you start. You're like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna wear? But it's actually not that difficult. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to wear when we started looking for clothes and outfits and all that. So I actually went shopping. We found what I wanted to wear first, surprise. And then we also matched Sean to what I was wearing. So when I picked my colors, first off, I started with white. I think that's kind of the classic color that girls are kind of doing for their engagement photos now. You don't have to do that, absolutely. Don't feel like you have to do white, but it did make picking his stuff a little bit easier after that. My first shirt was just straight white, and then I wore jeans on the bottom, which was super easy, and then I had a dress for the second outfit that was white with pink and orange and green kind of flowers on it. But that made picking his outfits a lot easier. Having one person that's kind of a neutral makes it easier for another person to do a color kind of a thing. The thing you really want to watch out for is not to clash colors, so don't pick things that are like super noisy. And then on top of that, don't pick something that's going to clash with the environment that you want. So I didn't want to pick green for him, for example, because I knew we were gonna go in the grass area, and I was like, it's not gonna work. So we're not gonna do that. And then I also thought that he looks good. Actually, the shirt that I picked out was like this exact color. It wasn't the shirt, but it was like this exact color. I like him in more jewel tone colors, like if that makes sense, like the darker colors. So like burgundy is really nice on him. So I went with like a burgundy tee for him because it didn't clash with what we were taking our photos in, first of all, and then it didn't clash with what I was wearing. And then second, you don't want to match. So like if you're both wearing white, it's going to be really odd to see like where each other is in the photos. So you want to be wearing something complementary but not the same, if that makes sense.
And I have the style coordination of a kindergartner. So I basically went along with everything that she said. We picked her outfits out, and I was like, yeah, that looks great. And I tell her that on everything she wears. But once we picked her outfits out, I let her basically go through and pick what it was that I want to wear. But you do want to keep in mind, you are going to be moving locations, and some of these locations may be outdoors, they may be public. You may not always have a good spot to change easily. Mm-hmm. So keep in mind that you are potentially going to want to change clothes at some point. So don't pick something that's super complicated to get out of, or that's going to be very difficult to change out of or into, for that matter, because it just makes the whole process take a lot longer.
Yeah. Ladies, if your guy is super tall like mine is, he's like a foot taller than me, wear heels. That makes the height difference a little bit less of one, so that it doesn't look super awkward in the photos. I mean, I think we seem to fit together pretty well anyway. It doesn't really matter all that much, but like in terms of getting like close-up photos, if I'm like here on him, then it like looks funny in the photos. So like I wore heels so I could kind of be a little bit more on par with where his height was, so that worked out for us.
And this kind of goes back to point number 2, which was looking at different photos and different styles and things. And you might have a specific shot where maybe you two are a different height, and you want that height difference because it looks really neat in some cases. So don't be afraid to experiment with things. If you take, for the ladies, for example, if you take a couple of different sizes or styles of shoes, you can swap in and out of those pretty quickly in the same photographic setting, and then get different looks just based on how you guys are like comparable in height. So it gives you some options to play with. It's just something to kind of keep in mind as you're going forward with things.
I was wearing heels and I think I still was like looking up at you like this. Struggles. Number 4. This one is all Sean. He's got this one for you.
So guys, if you've made it to this part of the video, congratulations. We're on the home stretch. It's almost done. So it's not that painful, but this is the key takeaway for you. If you take anything away from this video, please pay attention to the following point. Be spontaneous. When you're taking photographs like this, the whole point, the idea is to capture these intimate moments between you and the person you've asked to spend the rest of your life with you. It's a very intimate moment. And in order to capture that, you need to be authentic. Now, some of us are a little more affectionate than others, maybe. Maybe you show a little bit, more compassion in the open world, things like that. There's also some of us that are completely stoic and act like a stone anytime you're out in public and don't show any sort of affection at all. Everybody's got their own personal style and how they want to display that affection towards their partner. But when you're doing these photos, don't be afraid to be spontaneous. Kiss her randomly on the forehead or on the back of the neck, or pick her up or hold her hand when you're walking between, photographic shoots where you're going to take a photo in this location and then you're going to walk over here and you're going to take a photo over there. Just do random affectionate things. And it might seem really easy for some of you. Some of you are used to doing those sorts of things. Others, it's going to be kind of difficult. But if you keep that in mind and you try to do those things without prompting, if your photographer is paying attention, they're going to capture those moments, because what they're trying to do is capture that love and affection between the two of you. So if you are, walking down the road in front of them and you just randomly pick her up and hold her up above you and give her a kiss, that's going to be a really unique and special moment, and your photographer is going to immediately see it, and you're just going to hear click, 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 click in the background as they're taking photos. And some of the photos that we took, I think that I love the most, came out of moments like that. Mm-hmm. That, she didn't have to tell me, hey, like, try to act like this wasn't the first time that you've spent more than 10 minutes with this person. Show some love. She didn't have to say any of that. It was just all there naturally. And she actually made that comment several times. She was like, I've never had anybody that I didn't have to like coach through this. She's like, it's so natural. But it makes the process more enjoyable, It makes her happy. It makes the photographs look a whole lot better, and you're really going to love the way that it turns out if you can go through that little bit of extra effort when you're taking those photos.
This video is actually kind of brought on by our photographer. She said that Sean needs to teach all the other guys how to take photos. So
I happen to be a very affectionate guy, so I try to do those things for Kat naturally. It was just sort of a natural extension of how I am anyway during those photographs. So
yeah, big guy, soft heart.
Well, guys, I think that's it. I think that covers most of the tips and tricks that we have for you guys. If you are interested at all, if you want to chat any more about things, definitely reach out to Kat. I'm sure she's always willing to answer questions. We had a good experience with it, and hopefully, watching this and practicing some of these tips for yourself will make it a good experience for you, and you'll get photographs that you just absolutely love.
Yeah, absolutely. We hope this is helpful. And come back soon and check into what we have. We are going to be kind of documenting our wedding journey here on the blog, so follow it here, and we will see you later.
Bye, guys.
We should go get our puppy. She's panicking.